Hi, everybody, and welcome to the all-new Radio and Television Business Report InFOCUS video podcast. It's Adam R Jacobson, and I'm the editor-in-chief here at Broadcast Media's balanced voice for business, regulatory, and financial news. You can find it every business day at RBR.com. The InFOCUS video podcast is presented by .fm, streaming social podcast or broadcast. To get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. And if you'd like more about how you can be a part of this all new podcast, feel free to contact me at adam@rbr.com. I'll personally connect you with one of our relationship building specialists here at Streamline Publishing. Now, on to today's guest. It is Richard A. Foreman, the veteran media broker who heads up RAFAMEDIA. He has been an architect of some of the industry's biggest radio and television station deals seen over the last several decades, and he joins us today to discuss the pulse of an ever-evolving marketplace. With hopeful deregulation and ATSC 3.0's continuing rollout for the broadcast television industry, and the AM radio and every vehicle act awaiting a congressional vote, and then those ever-pesky microeconomic challenges rearing their ugly head practically every day, what has this meant for the media brokerage community? Well, as we know, Mr. Foreman is Dick Foreman. He is here to share his thoughts, and we welcome him to the podcast. It's so great to see you and have you here.
Thank you very much, Adam. Good to be amongst you.
Incredibly, the last time we had you on one of our podcasts was our now sunset audio podcast series, and that was in June of 2022. That was 3 years ago, but for some that might feel like a decade. Given all of the changes in Washington and with our nation's economy. And I'm wondering, what is your overall view of the broadcast media environment when it comes to the buying and selling of TV stations in particular? Are people excited about next gen TV, or is that simply not part of the discussions right now? And it's more of, some of the old tried and true of why people would want to invest in a UHF or a VHF.
So thank you again for having me on, Adam. I can't believe it's been 3 years, but I think that Dick Foreman has taken usually in small doses. So the 3 years is not that bad. So I think just trying to tick off the points that you've made. First of all, I think 3.0 is probably going to be a wonderful additive for the television business. We do have H2C that has come in as a latecomer in looking at 5G broadcast, but there are all kinds of issues with 5G broadcast that have not really been brought to the fore. One being this is not a direct input immediately into your telephone and into your mobile phone. There needs to be a converter in the phone itself, and let alone one of the issues of looking at just 5G is that you need an antenna that's critical for the entire process to work. And so it's not just a plug and play, as a lot of folks, I think, in 5G would like you to think it is. I do think, however, that ATSC 3.0, which is, if you look at a map, is really covered most of the major markets in this country. And those that aren't covered are really going to be very online very soon. And I think it's going to be very, very positive for the television business. I think, in terms of data transmission and in other opportunities for TV broadcast, I think it will be very seminal. And we'll have to settle it all out with what happens with the 5G broadcast and how that impacts the scenario. So that takes care of at least my initial view of where we are in terms of the technicality of the business. In terms of transactions, we obviously have the big Nexstar Tegna deal, which is over $6 billion. It's going to require some easement from the FCC. I think that will come under Chairman Carr and his regime. I think that most people believe it'll happen in the second quarter. The optimists would say in the middle of the second quarter of next year. The pessimists may say that, it won't be decided until the end of next year. But it's really in focus and it's really going to happen. It just is a matter of how it will happen and what kind of easement will come in terms of the cap and in terms of the in-market rule with ownership of TV stations. I think it will happen. And I think that the TV business will be spurred on after we get some sort of definition from where the commission stands. And, you know, I do salute Chairman Carr, despite the scenario that we had with Jimmy Kimmel. I do salute him in the fact that he is really progressive and going to make things happen. And some of the things we may not like to see what's happening as within Kimmel, but I think it's a very progressive FCC and probably a really, really good opportunity for us to look at the deregulation of the television and radio business. Turning to radio, I think that, you know, we're hopeful. We can see what the biggest deal has been really with Jeff Warshaw and Connoisseur here in Connecticut. And, you know, his recent activity of not only being involved with Alpha, but spreading it out to buying the Bonneville stations is another real positive. And I think, you know, Jeff's a great operator. He's a close friend, so I've got to be careful what I say. He is a great operator, and I think he'll do a lot for the Alpha Connoisseur tranche, and it will be very positive as to it. You know, we're witnessing with his transaction last week announced for San Francisco. But the radio business today, in terms of transactionality, is pretty slow. We've had some, as most brokers would tell you, we've had some activity, but the activity that largely we've seen is deals under $1 million. And that doesn't get many brokers excited to see deals under $1 million because, you know, and even more so under $500,000, because those kinds of currency counts are not real positive. But I think you'll see after Jeff gets settled in with Alpha, after deregulation takes place in TV and in radio, I think we'll see some positive movement. And I think for the first time in many years, the radio business may be improved, although we have to look at what deregulation may mean for radio. If you could own all the radio stations in the marketplace, every single one, how would that put you in terms of your involvement with digital against Google and against Instagram and up against all of the other digital aspects that are out there, which is the plaintiff cry of broadcasters for deregulation?
A lot of information there to unpack, and I thank you for your insight, because, you know, we talk about radio stations in the sense that there's not a lot happening. No, there's a lot happening, but as you know, they may not be big dollar deals. The big dollar deals that I've seen, however, of late are intriguing because they're so unique in different ways. We had the sale of the Beasley Media Group radio stations in Fort Myers and Naples to the local ownership group behind Sun Broadcasting, Joe Schwartzel's organization, and the Wink News organization there. So, you know, private broadcast company that already had a presence there is now expanding. And then we had the Milwaukee Radio Alliance, which decided that after the death of Willie Davis, it was time to get out. And a lot of people were kind of struck at how those valuations were perhaps lower than what they thought that the family and the Milwaukee Radio Alliance could get. And I know that Diane Sutter is, you know, a very smart person who, you know, definitely has been around this industry for a long time. It could be market dynamics there. It all comes down to the buyers and the potential buyers and where access to capital comes in. So given your long-time experience in this marketplace, are the buyers really simply the guys across town that might be able to expand once the regulation comes, and those broadcast ministries that just seem so flush with cash where they can come in and pretty much dictate the price and get what they want? Or is there still an opportunity to bring in that new to the industry individual, which we are seeing in some small select marketplaces. Mark Radio here in South Florida, or at least the Treasure Coast just up the road from our headquarters here in Boca Raton, is coming in. And this is a media company with roots in the automotive retail space. And they are now in Gainesville, Ocala. They're in fast-growing Brevard County, and they see an opportunity to buy privately owned group in the Treasure Coast, which is everything from Vero Beach down to Stewart, and they're going to go right after iHeartMedia. So that's encouraging, but is that an anomaly? Is that few and far between?
I'm not sure it is an anomaly. My thought is that the enterprise values have gotten so low that you've got people who have not been in the radio business saying, wow, I can come in here and I can buy A, B, C, and D for it. They're on sale. It's it's 50% of what the value was or less, just 4 or 5 years ago. So I think that you are going to see some new operators, and you're going to see people doing business in radio that'll be a little different, because the radio business has been really mostly traditional, certainly for the last 30 years. That hasn't really changed a lot. But I think you'll see new operators, such as you mentioned, the folks that are in the Treasure Coast coming in automobile opportunities. We have a pretty good strength of automobile dealers buying radio. I mean, look at Jim Morrell up in Albany.
Yes.
I mean, he's been in the business for a long time. So there seems to be, because the aspect of sales in automotive is very similar. If you look at the opportunity in radio, I mean, it's very direct, it's one-on-one, and it's making the cash register ring. And that's what a dealership does in automobiles, and that's what good radio operators, all radio operators, strive for. Good radio operators do that. So I think you will. Short answer, long answer to a short question. I think you will see some new capital coming in, and I think you'll see people doing business in radio differently than with new paradigms that we haven't heard of. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure that there'll be some, and that'll be positive for the radio business.
I love that insight. And with that, we're already at a place where we're going to pause for a brief word from our sponsors. So I'm going to bring Dick Foreman into the green room, and I'm going to take a little pause myself, and we'll be back right after this message. Stay tuned.
And out online, get your .fm domain. Perfect for streaming your music, building your social community, hosting your podcast, or broadcasting your brand. .fm, it's your online destination. Get yours today at www.get.fm.
And we thank .fm for being a historical legacy sponsor of this radio and television business report InFOCUS video podcast. If you'd like more information on how you can be a participant here on the InFOCUS video podcast, send me an email. I'm very easy to reach at adam@rbr.com. And with that, we want to bring back to the stage virtually Mr. Richard A. Foreman of RAFAMEDIA in beautiful Stamford, Connecticut. Of course, many of you know Mr. Foreman is Dick, and our next question focuses on the future of AM radio from the eyes of a media broker. For many, AM radio remains essential. We look right up the road in Boston to WBZ. We look at WLW in Cincinnati, and even some of these smaller properties. Giving a shout out to veteran New England radio programmer Clark Smith, who owns and operates WATX AM right down the road from Mr. Foreman's offices and home. AM radio, is it on the lips or is it on the minds of any buyers? I mean, we've had conversations with other media brokers who have come out and said AM radio is dead. No one cares. No one's talking about it. So what does that mean for a broker? Are they pitching it? Is it an add-on? What is the future of AM radio for the buying and selling of radio stations as we have active support, widespread support for the AM Radio in Every Vehicle Act on Capitol Hill, which still awaits a House vote, and hopefully we'll get there once the government reopens, which could be any time between now and Tu B'Shvat, but we'll see when that happens.
It happens to occur during our podcast here today. I hope you'd let everybody know so we wouldn't be in the dark that the government's. So I have to reflect on what other people have told you and what you've just really stated about AM radio being dead. In my opinion, the AM radio to business today is really very challenged. And the bright note is that the use of translators with AM has really aided and abetted the AM radio spectrum. So I want to make sure that it may be on its last few beats of breath, but there are some positive notes in radio, especially with the translator adjunct, which has been in for many years, and is, I think, an aspect has really saved some AM radio stations. But with that said, I think that we've taken a lot of time and being involved with this AM Radio Act, I got to believe that there is a better usage of time and effort in terms of the broadcasters in this country and in terms of the usage of their congressional opportunities and congressional focus points than just using it in AM radio in every vehicle. I mean, if you had AM radio in every vehicle, the answer my view is, so what? What does that bring? The only thing it may bring is FM radio because of the AM radio requirement for translators. So other than that, I don't see a big positive, and I see a lot of political collateral, a lot of just capital that's being focused on this one issue. And I'm probably missing it, but like other folks, I have to worry why we're putting so much effort, energy, and capital into this particular focus.
Speaking of the FCC and Congress and everything in Washington, the FCC's October open meeting is still on the calendar as of this distribution date of October the 16th. It will include a vote if they do have that meeting and the government's reopened. We're counting on it, just as Chairman Carr is. Will include a vote on moving forward legislation designed to bring ATSC 3.0 to its fullest fruition. Is this something that excites potential buyers? And I'm wondering what you've heard, at least across the brokerage community in particular, when it comes to TV stations, because you had earlier in this podcast talked at length about 5G broadcast. And I'm wondering if that's created somewhat of a split, because the low power TV business is very active. We see deals happening a lot. And the LPTV side of broadcast television seems to be more keen on 5G broadcast. And then you have the full powers, which are, looking at next gen TV. And we know the bigger groups in particular are looking at next gen TV for its non-broadcast data casting and dollar building opportunities that range from the alternative to GPS to, something that they can use to power the Internet of Things in their communities with, so much potential there for growth. So what, however, are you hearing, if anything? Does this add to the desire to buy a station?
I think it does. I think right now the halting factor in getting TV deals done is the Nexstar Tegna deregulation overview. I think when that gets sorted out, you'll see some TV deals. People don't really are in doubt as to what direction to go until the commission comes in and provides some guidance. I also want to note that, as in the case of requiring an antenna and plus a decoder in every telephone for 5G broadcast, we have 3.0, which is active in most markets But the fact of the matter is, there has not been a single television set that has been creative yet for 3.0. I think there will be, and I think that we'll see that coming along very quickly, beginning in 26. And I think 3.0 is a wonderful solution to add-on scenarios for television stations. You mentioned data. Gee, what about this GPS? Isn't that exciting? I mean, this could be a backup to the whole GPS system. And, we've seen recently where there are some issues with GPS fallout. And what do we have as a backup? I hate to say it's not great. So the reality is this could be a wonderful solution and a public safety issue for maintaining a GPS signal when the satellite falls out of the sky, or when a particular satellite might be blocked by a foreign nation. So wouldn't that be a great opportunity for what ATSC 3.0 is doing? And the other thing, data casting, and the world is data driven. And I think that the data casting is a marvelous opportunity to create a pipe right from Maine all the way through California on a very fast basis. And we're talking about terabytes of speed. And this will be great. And I think it'll happen. Again, as far as 5G broadcast, I think it's great that H2C has come forward and done this. They get over 250 television stations, LP TV television stations, 1,700 channels. So, it's a great opportunity for them. I don't know where it's going. I wish I could say with some definition that there's some clarity to that, but I don't know. But I do think that 3.0 will be a wonderful add-on for television, and it will, once we sort out Tegna, Nexstar, and FCC. Once that gets solved, you'll see some TV transactions.
And I just want to point out that it's HC2 Communications that has been very active in that LPTV space. And when we look at the television sets that are already equipped with ATSC 3.0, and we hear from Pearl TV, I just have to get on my soapbox and say that we certainly need more. And I really hope that the October open meeting vote will really bring Next Gen TV to public consciousness a little bit more than what we're seeing from Pearl TV. I know that they've sent out their press releases over the years, and they have statistics that show that people are buying these sets. But I have to tell you that I go to Costco and Best Buy and I ask if they have Next Gen TVs that are, 39 inches, 41 inches that are going to fit in my living room here. And they're pointing me to UHD 4K. There's still an education process, but if we do have legislation that will put the onus on the manufacturers to include a next gen TV capable chip or whatever's needed to activate that in all devices, I have to go back to the FCC of Newton Minnow and the addition of the UHF dial, which created a whole industry, which quite frankly helped create the Sinclair of today. Because if it wasn't for WBFF channel 45 being able to be tuned into on receivers that had a UHF dial, we may not have the company that we have today that's actually championing Next Gen TV and ATSC 3.0. So, you've been around this industry for a while. I'm not sure where you were when the UHF dial was first put into place, but I'm going to assume that you haven't been around that long. Let's look instead at the transition to digital at the end of the 1990s, because from a brokerage perspective, I think there might be some similarities in terms of excitement, if there was any excitement. When we went from analog to digital and TV, was there a feeding frenzy? Was there like, oh my God, I got to get in on this? Because from my fuzzy recollections, everything was all about radio deregulation and one company gobbling the other. And we had these massive valuations where one station in Miami was sold for $100 million. But what was going on in TV? And if you can look back in your career and compare at any particular point in the past, anything that's similar to what we could be experiencing now? Is this a whole new frontier, or is there any time in the past that reminds you of where we are going into 2026?
Well, in terms of television, I don't think there's anything that's comparable to ATSC 3.0. I really don't, because it really provides so many more services for the basic television station that were never provided before. And, you know, when you provide services, that creates economic strength for the TV station. It creates economic momentum, money, and that capital starts to attract buyers. And I think 3.0, as I've said probably 5 or 6 times on this podcast, I think that what you'll see that it's going to not only attract, but it'll be very, very incentivized to a buyer to look at, wow, I'm not only buying a network affiliate or buying an entry into a particular market, I'm buying a pipe now that goes from, you know, Bangor, Maine, all the way through San Diego, California. And, you know, you mentioned Sinclair, and I think it's very important to know that you're spot on. And the guy that was their vice president of technical, Mark Aitken, is now running TV1, which is the ATSC 3.0 derivative that's going to move this whole process forward. And I, again, will agree with you, Adam, that I think that once it's settled, the TV manufacturers will be on board. Why? Because, hey, guess what? There's money in them thar hills. There's the ability for these television set manufacturers to create a brand new shiny. And wow, this would be just great for us. So I think it will happen, and I think it'll happen pretty quickly once, you know, TV manufacturers are a bit like sheep trying to get over the fence in the farm. Once it's difficult as hell to get one over, but once you get one over, like lemmings, the rest of the whole flock will cross over, and you'll see all of these manufacturers jump on board quickly.
Mm-hmm. In the few remaining moments we have on this podcast, is there one topic that we did not touch on that is really kind of top of mind to you from the media broker community?
No, I think the brokerage community is really, at this point in time, looking for more activity. They've been that way for 3 or 4 years. We've seen, as you mentioned earlier, we've talked about the smaller transactions. That doesn't provide a real momentum in terms of interest, capital-wise, for these brokers. And the fact of the matter is most of these deals can be done one-on-one without the need of a broker. It's going up to your local TV or local radio operator and saying, hey, would you consider doing this? Radio operators today would consider anything. You know, they'd be considerate of anything that could provide some interest in their particular facility. So, you know, I do think that, I think the process will be positive going forward in radio, but we need to get, we need to get by deregulation, and we need to get some of this economic activities stimulated through other deals. You know, I think the Connoisseur Alpha Bonneville deal is wonderful. I think the Beasley deal in South Florida is wonderful because it gets the ball rolling. And once one thing happens, it will move to another. The big problem with radio today has been the lack of investment capital. PE firms are loath to get into it. But once you get 2 or 3 of these deals done, you'll see that PE guys will get interested. But they've got to have a reason to get interested. They're not going to get interested just because this person's buying this. They've got to say, well, look at what's happened here in terms of that company doing this, and look what they've done in terms of a positive capital movement. That is what they need to see to come in. And then I think we will see some, but it's going to take a little time.
Well, with that, we want to thank the man who loves Mauna Loa macadamia nuts more than any person I know in this industry, Dick Foreman, for being our guest on this InFOCUS video podcast. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, and with that, we want to thank you for tuning in to this radio and television business report InFOCUS video podcast. It was sponsored by .fm, streaming social podcast or broadcast. Get a .fm domain name by heading over to RBR.FM today. The InFOCUS video podcast is copyright 2025 by Streamline Publishing and is produced and distributed on the StreamYard platform from Boca Raton, Florida, home of the headquarters of Streamline Publishing and both Radio Inc. and the Radio and Television Business Report. I am Adam R Jacobson. Be sure to find us at RBR.com each and every business day for the best news from the broadcast media industry's balanced voice. We'll see you next time. Take care.